told me about your dad, so could you tell me about a little bit about your mom?
Okay, my mom and her family, I'll tell you about how they came to America. Um, my grandmother's she was originally from Finland, and so that was also an area in the early 1900s that was a very harsh time in America. Well, she had an aunt who lived in the Minnesota area, and her aunt and her uncle, her aunt became very sick, and so they asked her if she would move from Finland to come help with her aunt in America. And her name was Lydia Hendrickson. And she came to America by herself when I think she was around 16 years old. And she helped out in trying to heal her aunt, but her aunt died.
Wow.
And so she was here now alone with no family, except this uncle that she had. And apparently she didn't like the situation. And so for whatever reason, she decided to move to Denver, Colorado. And there she met my grandpa, Alvin Bowling. And they got married and they moved to Rocky Ford, which is just east of Pueblo, where we live right now. And in 1919, he was walking, it was in December, and he was walking along the road, and it was snowing very heavily. And a car came around a corner and hit him and killed him. And so he died in 1919. My grandmother was born in 1908, and her family then had to make do without a father. She would have been 11 years old when he died. And so my grandmother never married again, but she raised all of my grandma and her brothers and sisters, raised them in the Rocky Ford, moved to western Colorado for a time into the Paonia area, and then back to the Rocky Ford area. And then she met my grandfather, Merle Edwards, and he was from Oklahoma. And so they lived in Oklahoma for a while, and I'll tell you a story about my grandfather's father. He, in 1901, he was part of the Great Land Rush, and they lined up at the border of Kansas and Oklahoma, and then I think it was at noon, the guns went off, and they were able to go stake out property. And he started to stake out his property, his beautiful area, and some people came up, and they were called Sooners. They cheated. So they went in first, and so they pulled their guns on him, and so he just, instead of letting them they got away with cheating, he just let them have the land, and he went on then to stake out some other land. And so he staked out some land near Stillwater, Oklahoma. That's where the University of Oklahoma is, in Stillwater. And they farmed there for years and years, and then that's where he was raised. And he then met my grandmother, and they got married. And then in 1925, my grandmother was born. And they then, because of the harsh times in the Dust Bowl and just the difficulties that they had in Oklahoma at that time, they moved to Colorado. And so they went to school in this area where we are right now. And in Avondale, there was a high school there, and my grandmother went to school there. She met my dad, who lived not too far away, and they were married in 1945, after the war, after they got out of, my dad got out of World War II.